when you are 1FD career, the Counsellor of Venezuela-India, India.
Right. Okay.
So, just a moment, he was just to say some
No, I'm here in.
Saudi issue.
Sorry, if you want me to like.
He visited, he just came Calcutta.
This is my first time in Kolkata here for the Durga Puja and Sharadiyar Subecha. Very nice to be here. I'm sorry if I did not say that correctly. Yeah. Okay.
Now, one, first thing, welcome to Calcutta. It's a place where you can get the cultural flavor of the country. Okay. Now, the people of Calcutta, apart from their cultural aspect, they are also very much politically concerned. Particularly the current situations of the Latin American countries, where some sort of movements are being found against this neoliberalism or financial capital, and we have passed through various phases of the bad sides of this neoliberalism. And you have made progress in your all activities, political activities. Now tell me that what are the root causes that what we nowadays find through the newspapers or through television channels? Why these sort of agitations to your common people are coming against the present government? And what are your views? How to overcome, how to combat those forces? And we virtually know that these are being sponsored by some drastic influence. So how you are combating?
Okay. First off, we want to say that we're very respectful of every country's decision to how to develop themselves, be it neoliberalism or be it any other sort of economic model. But in the case of Venezuela specifically, neoliberalism caused huge amounts of social inequality, of poverty. So neoliberalism in Venezuela was a failed experiment which was imported from the economic centers of the world, be it the United States, Europe. So this failed experiment that created huge inequality and vast differences in Venezuela produced a social explosion, which was the genesis of the Chavista movement that came to power in 1998. So with a more social government, with socialism as our flag, we have reduced inequality in such a way, we have distributed the public wealth and invested in the people in such a way that we have been awarded by the United Nations and specialized agencies for reducing poverty, for eliminating illiteracy, for a lot of social indicators. So this model, which is in Venezuela, obviously was against the past model of neoliberalism and transnational companies in Venezuela doing business to get the revenues out. Specifically the oil companies, because how did we do this model? We did it over the basis of protecting our economy and our major industry, which is the oil industry. So President Chavez in 2002 promoted a law which nationalized the oil industry, which gave the country 51% of all joint ventures. Before, usually ExxonMobil, Chevron, these companies had 98% stakes, and they took all of the oil revenue. So now with 51% of the oil revenues, we had much more money to invest in the people, to distribute in the people. So the majority of the oil companies agreed to these new rules, except one, ExxonMobil, of which the current Secretary of State of the United States was their CEO at the time. ExxonMobil presented a lawsuit against us, they lost. They filed a new lawsuit in an American court and they were lost again. But our model, which broke with the past model of transnational companies entering in Venezuela and taking all of the riches out. So it created some very powerful, I don't want to call them enemies, but rivals, because Venezuela has a very strategic geographical standpoint, and also because it's an oil company, it's very cheap to produce in Venezuela. Energy is very cheap in Venezuela. So we have access to the South, and we have access to the Caribbean, and we have access to Central America. So a lot of companies, like ExxonMobil, lost a lot of money when they decided they don't want to play with our new rules, because the new rules were meant for the people, not for these companies. So for the last 18 years of government, we have always had these oil companies and a lot of these private companies doing a lot of lobby against Venezuela. Permanent lobby in the States, always criticizing. But Chavez's achievements were so undeniable. They were so undeniable. I'm very happy to be in Kolkata. It was a dream for me because Chavez came to Kolkata. And the reception he had here in Kolkata, you can see it through the videos, through the pictures, was so astounding that I just had to see it for myself. So Chavez was a force that all of these media cannot hide. They cannot hide. You could see it in Venezuela. Anybody that went to Venezuela could see all of the progress. Because obviously, if the money was going out, now the money is staying in the country. That means much more wealth for everybody there. So when President Chavez died in 2013, President Maduro won the election 1 month after. And the oil prices came down because the United States started selling shale oil and producing much more oil than the markets needed. It caused a collapse in the economies, not just Venezuela, Russia, China. It caused a collapse. Their GDP went down. So in Venezuela, which was heavily, we rely a lot on imports, because the neoliberal experiments dismantled the agricultural sector, dismantled the industrial sector. So what they started doing was, they started subtly blocking us. The rating agencies would suddenly say that Venezuela had had potential threats, very dangerous. They would call us very unsafe to invest in Venezuela. Very unfairly, because Venezuela is something we have always paid our debts in the other time frames. But these rating agencies would start evaluating us negatively. The bank would start giving us credits at a much higher interest rate, and they would slowly make it much more difficult for the country to import everything it needed, all the food, all of the medicine it needed. So the last 4 years have been a real economic war against us, and I don't say it lightly. What does that mean, economic war? The medicine in Venezuela, the food in Venezuela was highly subsidized by the government. So all of this was grabbed by the private distributors of the major food chains, supermarket chains. And they took the food to neighboring Colombia, to neighboring Brazil, to the Caribbean islands, because it was much cheaper to sell in these countries than in Venezuela. So we had episodes of hoarding, we had episodes of stuff being destroyed purposely. You would see storages and closets of food and medicine being destroyed. All very well planned to create a natural anger, popular anger against the government. Because you're trying to make it look as if the government is mismanaging. So they did something very similar to Salvador Allende in Chile, where the big chambers of commerce decided that they're not going to work anymore. They blocked, they sabotage, and that is what we've been going through for the last 4 years. And people have been standing there very stoic, very resistant. There is a natural increase of people who are not happy with the government. Either because it's been 4 years and we have not been able to fully resolve the situation. So that is normal. But there's also a very small portion of the population which decided that they had had enough, and they were not going to wait for the scheduled constitutional elections next year. And they wanted to oust government before that. So they went to the streets to riot, to try to get government to resign. And their riots became more and more violent, and we had 4 months of this. And the riots...
My question is that, following your submission, my question is that these groups who are coming now, President Maduro on the roads and doing some, indisciplinary actions and doing some arson or fighting on the roads. Are they coming from a particular section of people? Are they from the upper
Rather
middle
financed
class?
by some.
Are they from the classes which are sponsored or which have got aspiration to some consumerism, something like that? Or it is the poor people who are not having food in their hands? So, is there any differentiation of this education? I mean, to whom these poor people are inclined? Do they still inclined to Maduro? They can understand what are the reasons why there is shortage of food and how your community to those people. Okay, because these forces who are doing disturbance in the system, they are very much product of some design movement. So my question is that what is the general feeling of the common people?
That's a three questions in one. Okay, the first, the riots, no, the protests. In 2014, in the Guardian newspaper in UK, Mark Weisler wrote an article about the nature of the protests in Venezuela. I think it's labeled like the Venezuelan slums. Why don't the Venezuelan slums riot? And it's the same scenario now. The poor classes, the poor neighborhoods are not the ones on the street rioting. In Venezuela, you have 335 municipalities, of which the riots are happening in 7 municipalities. All 7 of these municipalities, middle class to higher middle class. Especially in Caracas, you have one very, very posh municipality called Chacao, where the majority of the rioting is happening. So before the rioting used to be middle class to higher middle class. But this year, they got much, much more violent. So what is the difference between this year and the year 2014 where this also happened? They started paying people from the lower classes. No? They got some youngsters from the poor neighborhoods, paying them to riot. And then you would start seeing, and this is where the plan comes in, no? Companies like DHL and FedEx would started shipping instruments. They started shipping metal pellets. They started bringing it in free of cost. So people in the States would ship to Venezuela these metal pellets. All of the instruments needed for these handmade weapons. We had handmade rockets, handmade 250 Molotovs. All of these instruments that were being shipped in, and these people were using them. So when government started putting these people in jail, and we found, they kept saying, the investigations said that they were being paid off by these ONGs, these NGOs that were very much linked, not just to opposition parties, but to the NED and to USAID, which are 2 US government agencies that promote democracy. So the riots were not spontaneous at all. They were actually paid. You would see a lot of people wearing these very sophisticated gas masks, because in Venezuela, the constitution states that to contain riots, police and National Guard must always use only tear gas and rubber pellets. So it's only, and in this case, President Maduro, because of the whole international campaign, media campaign, he prohibited the use of the rubber pellets. So we could only use tear gas and these water cannons. And they will show you the images of the water cannons. So how did these people come to all of these sophisticated gas masks? Because they're not homemade gas masks. And then you would see 10, 20, 30% using the same mask, using the same sort of weapon, homemade weapons.
Even they attacked hospital children.
What they did, it was grotesque. No? They fired on children's hospitals, they attacked food storages, they attacked supermarkets, they destroyed lorries, they tried to generate as much internal chaos as possible, so that Venezuela was seen as a failure.
You mean to say one kind of anarchism?
They did. What we did was contain the anarchism to these 7 municipalities. But once you read it on the newspapers, it looked like the whole country was in flames. So they increased the level of violence to such an extent that in these municipalities, their own neighbors were imprisoned because of them. So you started seeing internal strifes between pro-opposition forces, between these people who were paid by the political opposition parties and the neighbors there. They started arguing against themselves as in what to do, because 1 month happened and they thought the government would fall. 2 months happened. After 4 months, you have people that needed to go to work, people that had to go to school, and they would not be able to leave their houses because these hooligans, as you well put it, these hooligans, these paid hooligans, got out of control. And you can tell that it was planned and it was not spontaneous, because after 8 million people went out to vote for the National Constituent Assembly elections, the violence stopped. The violence completely stopped. And it's not because government decided let's militarize character, let us bring the... No. We did nothing. The elections happened and the show of popular support was so massive that the political parties in the opposition decided this is not working. This is not working, and then what they did, they stopped financing. And once they stopped financing, the violence stopped.
So my question is you have got a lot of communities in various localities where the local people are taken in these community centers and what are the, it was made by Hugo Chavez, what I understand. Now, what are the role of this community and these sort of people, local people? Why don't, because they were completely, they completely follow the idealism of Hugo Chavez. Then why don't they come out and make the resistance? And to some extent, what is the role of your progressive students? They must know that what is going on, because the design is almost same international. It is first some sort of education will come from the upper class, and it will go to out of the country, and then the other international forces will make propaganda that the country is in a very, very bad shape. So we have to rescue all the people from the clutch of this government, and then the other agents like NGOs etc. will come, and then some a lot of noises will be made by the media, and the design is same everywhere. It happened in West Asia. It happened in countries like Iraq,
Greece, Spain, everywhere.
So what are the rules? Because you are emancipated yourself from this neoliberalism long back. So you had got enough time to equip yourself to combat those forces.
We have, and 8,200,000 people, the majority of them pro-government, went to vote on the 30th of July against all odds, against threats to their lives, against blocking of streets, against this level of violence that came to such heights where people were actually threatened, and if they went out to vote, they would be beaten or lynched. Let's remember that during the riots, people were actually burnt because they stated they were Chavistas, or they were pressing, or they were pro-government, and they were just passing through one of these municipalities. No? So the Chavista people went out on the streets for 4 months, other streets, parallel streets, to pacifically show the world that they were there to support government. None of this showed up in any newspaper. You will see in one city, well, people rioting here, another side people were here on the streets. Why didn't these people become a sort of resistance? That is because President Maduro's leadership. A lot of people, pro-Chavistas, actually wanted to go and have a more active defense of the revolution. No? But that is what they're also looking for. They're actually looking for social strife, for conflict. So President Maduro was very intelligent in telling them, please, no violence. Don't let yourself be provoked. Do not fall into their games. Because once that happens, then government has effectively lost control of the situation. Once people start resolving their situation, their problems through violence, then it is the perfect excuse for the United States to say, you have lost all control, I'm going to step in. It was the fact that we contained the violence in these municipalities while the rest of the country was in a normal state and people were were marching and demonstrating peacefully, was the fact that that did not happen. So the poor people, why do they still support the government? It is because after 4 years of economic hardships, we have not stopped investing in social programs, in public housing. We have not stopped at all in education. Most countries usually cut this. They cut social spending. We did not. That is why we have still continued under immense hardship. That is why the majority of people still are with us.
So my last question to you, that you have undergone to various, agreement with Government of India regarding oil, etc. Do you think that it will continue seamlessly in coming futures?
Yes. There's no indication that it will not. The government of India is they strive for a development model. They require a lot of oil for their development, for their growth. And India is looking to have energy safety and energy sovereignty. And Venezuela wants to be a part of that development. No? The Indian companies, especially the public companies, have joint ventures with Venezuela in Venezuela. They're producing with us. We are very, very well linked, and we're looking to increase the output of oil to India. As you know, the States is sanctioning us, so that means less oil for the States and more oil for India. It's a win-win situation, and we don't believe that it will stop in the near future. It will continue.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jaun.